All right, let's do something just a little bit different today. Same jig, same tie, but we're going to do we're going to tie in a weed guard. I've had a lot of requests asking if I tie weed guards. Myself, I don't really use a weed guard. I get a lot of people that request them. I don't necessarily need them the way I fish. I fish a lot of a vertical jig most of the time, so it don't really require me being in a bunch of weeds, treetops. But sometimes you do. On a cast retrieve, you might want the weed guard. So I'm going to show you how I tie in a weed guard. Let's get started. We've got an 1/8 ounce. I can't remember the name of that jig head. It's not a pill head, not an aspirin head. It is. It'll come to me here in a minute. But anyway, we've already glued the shank of our hook. We're going to tie down to the point, come back up, and we are going to readjust our vise just a little bit. Got a little bit loose. Got it. So let's trim off our tag end. Let's go red and chartreuse hackle in this one. I'm using saddle hackle. Hairline dubbing saddle hackle. We got a Plateau Fly Shop. Wrap it all the way back up. Let's add one more feather in there. I had 3 of them cut and only put 2 in, so let's add another one. And mainly this video is going to be on putting in the weed guard. So let's wrap it back up, and when I tie my weed guard in, I'm going to position my jig like this. For this weed guard, I was going to use clear 60-pound mono, but I don't have a very good focus on the clear. I've got 30-pound trilene leader line. We're going to use that instead, so that way it's focuses a little bit better. You'll be able to see a little bit better. But when you cut a piece off, you're going to have this moon shape from memory of it just being on the spool itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off about where my fingertips are. I'm going to cut it off just a little bit long, but I want the weed guard going up with the hook. I don't want to turn it this way and end up having it going down. So we're going to cut it just a little bit longer. Let me try to give you an idea of how long we're going to cut it. About the length of the jig with the feathers on it. We're going to trim that off. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 90-degree bend in that mono. The 60-pound mono is a little bit easier to get your fingers on to get a bend in. But like I said, with the it not wanting to focus real well with the clear, I went with the green leader line. It's going to show up a little bit better. And if you got to help put that 90-degree bend in it, let's see if this helps. It might not even help, but we're going to give it a shot. They got us pretty good. So what we got? 90-degree bend in that. Now I want that bend as close to the head of that jig as we can get, so I'm going to cut just a little bit more of it off. That should do it right there. So just like if you was going to be tying in your hackle or anything else, a couple loose wraps, go tight from the bottom. That'll help keep you in line with the shank of that hook. And that's what we got so far. Now when I get here, make sure that don't want to ever pull out on us. I'm going to put just a little bit of UV resin on it. And we're going to harden that down with our light. Make sure it don't move. And with the 60 pound, if you use 60 pound mono, it will lay a whole lot straighter than this. This is a lot more limp than the 60 pound is. But this will give you an idea of how I tie it in. Once we get that UV glue to where it's cured, good enough to keep tying, we're going to come all the way back here, go on the back side of it, a couple good wraps, and we're going to go right back to wrapping our jig just like we would. But now you're just going to wrestle a little bit with that weed guard being in your way. So let's go right there. Let me... I thought I already had this chenille laid out, but I didn't. We're going to go with a chartreuse chenille, just going to kind of match feathers. Like I said, this video is more for tying in your weed guard more so than what kind of jig we're tying. A little bit more to work around on this one. So now we got our weed guard, we got our thread and our bobbin hanging down, we got our chenille getting ready to wrap. So now we are going to, actually we're going to cut our chenille just to make it a little bit easier to wrap on this one. We're going to not use our rotating function on the vise. We're just going to manually wrap this one on by hand once I glue it. Like I said, I was more prepared for just tying in this weed guard than I was tying a jig, but we're going to tie, we might as well make it functionable. All right, so we're back where we started. Let's get our chenille wrapped. Go underside your weed guard, back up. And when you start getting your weed guard, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. Bend it out of the way. We're going to wrap it one more time. Tie our chenille down. Let's give it a whip finish. And then we'll work on that weed guard just a little bit more. So rotate your jig back up, and now this is part that's up to you. You cut that weed guard up here way up past the hook, cut it even with the hook. We're going to go just a little bit above the hook, just like that. So now you have got a tied in weed guard in your hand tied crappie jig. Simple, it's easy. Don't make stuff out to be any harder than what it's got to be. I've seen a lot of other videos where people are tying them in. I've never been a big fan of super glue. It dries up in the tube. It won't come out. You never have it when you need it. You're out of it. Super glue over time will become wet, brittle. It'll want to fall apart, come untied, come undone. You've got that tied in with the UV resin. It's not going anywhere. I might not have put enough time on it with the UV light, but you got the point. You see what I'm talking about. You can make this weed guard come up right here straight, vertically straight up from behind the hook. You can bring it all the way up here to the neck. You could get your hand tied jig. You could tie the weed guard here at the end at the neck when you're done with the jig. You know, same thing. Put a little bend in it, put it right there behind the head, wrap it down real nice and tight. You got your weed guard. But with the 60-pound mono, you're going to get a little more resistance out of that weed guard than you are with the 30. The 30, like I said, was just used for a demonstration. It showed up good. It worked good. But actually, I kind of like the way the color matches the jig. It don't really hinder it any. But that's it. That's how I tie in my weed guard on my crappie jigs. Any questions, comments, let me know. Let me know what you think. If you think that'll work. If you think it won't work. Give it a shot. It's easy to do. You know, if you're tying up your own jigs, that's a little bit of insurance that you're going to get it back when you drop it down inside that brush power. Or you cast it up there to the bank. Maybe it's going to, you know, block the weeds, small little pieces of tree bark from getting on that hook. It's worth a shot. It's cheap. It's Trilene Big Game is what I got here, 30-pound leader line. Like I said, the 60 is better. It's got a little more resistance in it, but it wasn't going to focus real good for this video. So give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Hit the thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Till next time, I will see y'all later.